Hey everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough. How are we doing today? Welcome to another While You're Reforging. And so this is, if you don't know, my show where every Friday I try to do something so I can catch some folks over in the Europe area, that whole region of the world. Whether that's a lot of folks in the UK, a few folks from Switzerland, Germany, things like that. Good evening to you, morning, night. I don't really know what time it is, but anyway, this is for you guys. And the point of these shows is not really to have anything to actually show you. What's on the screen is going to be pretty much unimportant. This is more just to give you something to listen to while you're painting and relaxing and getting ready for the weekend. So thank you, friends, so much for joining me. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about here today, and this is going to be another one of those episodes where if you don't know, like 2 weeks ago, I asked my patrons, "Hey guys, we're looking for content ideas for Fridays. What's a good discussion thing?" And the patrons over on Patreon came up with a whole host of really, I think, interesting topics. It's just, those things that like you don't think of, but then as soon as someone asks you, like, "Hey, how do you do blank?" You're like, "Oh yeah, not everyone knows that." So it's a lot of those cool topics. We're very insightful and very helpful and that kind of stuff. I see the chat's working. Hey everybody. Let me know if everything is going well. Let me adjust here so I can bring my chat a little bit more in view for myself. There we go. Okay, so we got Jack. We got Syndrast. Hey, everybody. Time is an artificial construct anyway. Fair. You win for that one. And Jack asked, am I still coming over this weekend? Yes. Yes, I am. And we're going to get to something else that's happening this weekend here pretty soon. So, anyway. Sup, kids? I exist again. What's up, Kenzie? It's been a bit. All right. So, here we are. We're going to jump into our live show talking about hobby. Now, my week did not have a lot of hobby in it. This is the extent of my hobby, which is making lists. So, if you don't know me very well, I'm someone who, my enthusiasm is like a roller coaster. It goes up and it comes down, it comes up and down, and that kind of stuff. And so for, I don't know, a couple weeks now, honestly, I've been kind of just autopiloting in terms of like AOS stuff. And the reason for that is not because I've lost any like interest for the game. It's just because I get a lot of my own personal enjoyment from actually playing it, and I just haven't had a lot of opportunity between work and, obviously lockdown is always kind of in flux. We're waiting on an announcement today to know what's going on in our next steps. But point is, haven't done an actual lot of hobby. Really don't feel motivated to actually start painting a new forest. So I have these Lumineth just sitting here and I'm like, I don't want to paint them like at all. And so I was like, what do I want to do? I want to add to my Nurgle. And so this is the first time that like I've kind of put that army aside. I just put it in the closet. I was a good boy. I followed everyone's advice. Doug, don't trade it, don't sell it. Just put it in the closet. Wait for the enthusiasm to come back around. And it sure did. And so now I'm like, okay, I have my thematic list that I like for my Nurgle. Let's start working on a more tournament one. And again, I am not a tournament player. I just want something that I can go 2-1, laugh a lot, win or lose very quickly, and get beers with people. That is literally my tournament goal. 2-1, hopefully losing the first round, so I'm not like, in heat for winning. I was there once against Jack, and it was like, I don't like this. I don't like being in second place. This sucks. So anyway, I want to lose round one and then the next 2 rounds just having an absolute blast. So let's go over the list here. If you don't know, this is my hobby progress because, like I said, I haven't bought or painted anything. I've just been doing a lot of daydreaming about this particular aspect of the hobby, and it's kind of new to me in terms of thinking for tournament stuff, but it's a Nurgle list. 1,090 points on the head is spent for the Affliction Cyst Battalion. So you have the Lord of Afflictions, you have 3 units of Blight Lords, and one of them I bumped up to a 4-man unit. I love that. Now, a lot of people don't understand what it does. I shared this list and they're like, there's nothing there with hitting power, there's nothing there with rend, it's all bad. But the truth is, this is not a list designed to kill things. This is a list that is singularly designed to play the objectives game, which is what wins tournaments, not killing stuff necessarily. So when you turn 1, because as we'll go through the rest of this, it's a 2-drop army, throw that many wounds with Disgustingly Resilient into your opponent's face round 1, it's a lot. It's a lot to handle. I've played it now, I think 7 times against an array of armies, whether it's Stormcast, Nighthaunt. What else did I... Jack, if you're in the chat, what else have I played this against? You were there for some of them, but those are the big ones for sure. And the core idea of just pinning things down with large bases, the Puscoils, it works. It works so good. And so then you have the other 910 points of your list to come up with something that's gonna do the rest of the work, which is capturing objectives in match play type stuff for events and things like that. And so I decided to check out the Pestilent Throng from the Beasts of Chaos. Now, of course, there's an inside joke on the channel that I said that Beasts of Chaos was going to be my army. I think it was for 2019. Was it? Or was 2018? Time is a construct. So basically, it is the Pestilent Throng with 3 units of 20 Ungor, 10 Bestigor, and 2 Shamans. Now, the Shamans, they don't get access to any Nurgle spells, but they can spin the wheel. Like, one spell that all Nurgle wizards in a Nurgle army know is the Foul Regenesis. Not Foul Regenesis, whatever it's called. But basically, you get to turn the wheel to whatever you want. That's the only spell I care about. But basically... Oh, Seraphon. Thank you. Yes, Seraphon. You should go watch that. I'm rerolling once. But anyway... yeah, so the rest of it is just running up there. If you don't know, for Ungor and Bestigor, they can run and charge because they have banners that let them do that, and they get an extra 3 inches of movement if they're near a Great Bray Shaman when they start. So you just pin everything down with a fly, you power launch all the Ungor onto objectives, and then you invite your opponent, hey, do you have enough stuff to kill all the wounds of the Blight Lords? The answer is probably. Most armies do, especially if I'm only throwing half my list at their entire army. But then the secondary question is, when you're done with that, do you then have enough strength to come and tear apart 20 Ungor? Man, like, the answer is for some armies is going to be yes, which is why I want to go 2-1, but I think it sounds awesome. I think it sounds like a lot of fun. So that is my list that I've kind of been working on. It's not going to be something I'm going to run right away, because this weekend I'm actually meeting a friend of the channel, Matt, who basically has a whole bunch of Beasts of Chaos. He's one of those guys who collects things, and he just kind of got a little bit too much. So I'm actually going to be giving him some of the Lumineth to supplement this. Come in with a whole bunch of Beasts of Chaos stuff. I'll be able to create some really cool options here with combining the Pestilent Throng and the Nurgle that I already have and love. So I'm very excited. That's, like I said, that's my hobby for the week, is just daydreaming about this list. I put it up online, and a lot of people were like, because if you've never seen the Affliction Cyst do what it does as far as pinning things down turn 1, people don't appreciate it. And because you'll get stuff like, okay, well, what about Nighthaunt, where they can just fly over you? And the truth is, the base size, which is something we don't often consider when it comes to a unit strength, is so big on a Blight Lord that you're asking Ghosty Boys to move, like a big unit of them, to move quite far, actually, to get outside 3 inches of a Puscoil Blight Lord. And so, yeah, it's good. It's good. I like it. And it's a simple one-trick pony. I like one-trick pony lists, as I've discovered, and I've told Jack this, because your thing either works and you're like, yes, this is incredible, or your thing doesn't work and you're like, all right, let's get a beer. Yes, beer is incredible. So that's basically it for me. And so that's going to go ahead and conclude Hobby Progress. I'm going to open it up as I do between every single one of these sections. Do you have any thoughts, questions about the list, anything like that? Hopefully next week I'll actually have some of these models in hand to be able to start painting them, and I can actually have Hobby Progress to show you. This is just one of those things that I don't know. It's one of those kind of down weeks for me in terms of, like, I need to figure out what I want to do before I can start actually, moving in a direction, purchasing things, painting things, that kind of stuff. So I think you played with my Cities of Sigmar list as well. Did I? That sounds like me. It sounds like me to play that and not remember. But I think you're right. I do think you're right, because I think we met at Mox for that one. Well, cool. I'm going to go ahead and move along here. We're going to move into the news. Now, I'm going to be honest. There was not a lot of AOS news this week, as kind of expected, because, 40K just launched, and obviously it was not going to be like, hey, it's Indomitus, and then they just kind of like stop talking. You know what I mean? Like, no, they got to do all these painting tutorials, which if you want to paint either Force from that starter box, there's a whole bunch of tutorials that they're dumping on YouTube. And, last week, the first bit of news that I dropped was that the app had just been released, and I had said, basically that's going to be a crap show, and people are going to be mad because it didn't launch in a good state. And that was before I ever downloaded it. Still have not downloaded it, but I found a way to be right. So I'm going to pat myself on the back so hard that I cough a little. Okay. So, honestly, the news things, I bring up this page just to kind of show you what's been going on, but most of it's not super relevant or important. I picked out ones that I thought I wanted to talk about. The big one being that if you want to learn how to play 40K and you want to understand some of the differences, they put together a fantastic series of videos to teach you how to play. And I like this one, specifically this image where it actually highlights the deployment zones. So you can like visualize, okay, when I look at a map, this is what we're doing. And I really appreciate that. So yeah, there's a whole great tutorial series. Go check it out. Every YouTube channel that's devoted to 40K is in the process of like, we're working on our definitive guide to 40K. Watch our video and you'll be able to win, I don't know, Nova Open or something crazy. So, I don't know why. I feel like all those guys talk like that. The super like hyperbole of like how good you're going to be and how awesome my YouTube channel about 40K is, that's the voice of that to me. And then the other big news, of course, I was talking about the app. I don't know, it was like 3 or 4 days after the app's launch, maybe. They came out with an article that basically explained like, look, I mean, this is as plain English as a publicly traded company can get when they say, look, we know it's broke, but we're working on it. We're going to keep on working on it. We wanted to keep our promise of having this thing out, day one. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of cool stuff that's going to be coming. I have not downloaded it yet. I'm not gonna until it's in a good place and I hear good things about it. But honestly, welcome to winner's tax. It's the thing that happens when 40K is so popular that people just want to throw money at it, is companies feel rushed to do things and everybody has to be chill and just kind of like get over it for a little bit. So that's winner's tax. There we go. And that is pretty much it for news. People are still settling with the GHB a bit. I believe I did my video about like how I'd like to see Path to Glory in it, and I stand by that. It got some great positive reactions, some cool ideas from people about what they'd like to see. But yeah, on the whole, it's been a very, very quiet week for AOS, and so yeah, we're gonna move right along here, and we're gonna come into our main subject. Again, these videos while you're reforging, not super long. We're just going to be chatting. I see Kenzie just said, Sons of Behemoth soon. Absolutely, yes. And actually, before I get into the main topic, which is, of course, hobby mistakes, I do want to have a conversation about 2020's release schedule, because we're not quite sure, in an alternate universe where this never happened, COVID never happened, what would the release schedule have been like? And now that everything is kind of out of whack, they had their essentials. We have to get the next edition of 40K right. Like that sale had to land for them to be able to go to their, stockholders and be like, look, we're doing the best we can. And I think they did. I think they did really well between the Indomitus box selling out and the subsequent made to order thing. And then of course, I believe it's this week or next week, there's a whole bunch of the smaller starter sets, which is the thing that honestly most of us should have waited for anyway. I don't say that arrogantly. I didn't know they were coming either. Like, now I'm glad that I didn't get Indominus. I could look at those cheaper ones and be like, oh yeah, that's way easier to split with somebody. Yeah. So anyway, it's been cool to see how they've adjusted, but I do wonder what it was supposed to be like. Are we supposed to already have had the Sons of Behemoth, book and that kind of stuff in an alternate world? I don't know, but by golly, I wish we had. So now I'm excited for Giants. I'm excited for, they've been talking a lot more about Dark Elves, and I'm really excited for that as well, like Malarian's children. And I just want to know everything about them. I'm just excited. I'm in a good place, I think I'm changing as a person to where I don't want to do new armies, and I want to just keep expanding my Nurgle. It seems to be my happy place, so we'll go with that. So now, let me pull up my notes here so I have my nice little list. But we're going to chat about some hobby mistakes. One of the questions here, let me get the actual question here. So it is asked by patron Biofoot78. Advice on what mostly unspoken rules and... Oh, wait, hold on a second. That is the wrong one. That is next week. So it is this week. So let's see. This is Bly... And I'm just going to say D for the last name because I don't know how to pronounce this. It looks French or something. Maybe discussing some big hobby mistakes you or others have made or still make there in parentheses. So, let's chat about it. Brian, I see your question. I'm going to go ahead and answer that at the end here, buddy. So just hang on. Save that one and I'll open it for questions at the end. So, Bly, let's talk about this. What are some big hobby mistakes that I and others make? Well, I wanted to divide this into two categories here. There's things that I used to do, meaning if I met somebody who was just getting into the hobby, hey, listen, here's some pitfalls that I fell into, but my hobby has improved greatly since I've addressed those or changed or did something, And then the other category I want to break it into is stuff that, frankly, I still do, and I'm 100% happy about it. So I know it's wrong. I choose this anyway, is basically that second one. So let's talk about the stuff that I used to do, right? What things that or advice that I would give to folks getting into the hobby. When I say hobby, I mean capital H. I'm talking painting, modeling, list building, I'm talking like capital H hobby, playing the game, that kind of thing. For me, the biggest one when it comes to painting and stuff is thinning your paints. Now, when I first started, I stuck to exclusively P3 paints by Privateer Press, and I will say that their paints are much, out of the pot, thinner than GW's, and so I would see people talking about, oh, you gotta thin your paints, online, and I'm like, I don't get it. But since going to other painting companies, I have now seen, okay, yes, you do need to thin these things. P3, there's some colors where they're almost so translucent, you don't really need to. They're very few. A lot of them are kind of like the highlighter green type things, like for warp effects and that kind of stuff. But there are some where you're like, if that's the only paint you've been exposed to, you're like, I don't see a need. On the whole, always thin your paints. They last longer, they stretch further, but also just because it gives you a nicer, smoother finish. Cody, I'm gonna answer that here at the end. These are great questions for new pitfalls and stuff like that. So anyway, that's my big one, is thin paints. The one that I also used to do was go too heavy on washes. Now, washes are an interesting thing because they're often described as liquid talent, and it's absolutely true. That is one of the things that, if you want to instantly see progress, throw a wash on it and you'll just see the shadows and it'll just feel like you're doing a lot of things better. Specifically my problem, was that I went way too heavy on the washes because there was a time where I was really into kind of like that dark noir, where you have exaggerated shadows kind of look. But the problem is highlighting things becomes a huge pain in the butt afterwards because, your nice, translucent, thinned layer paints, all of a sudden they look really dirty and grungy and they don't quite look right. So that's always been a thing that I've kind of struggled with, and I've gotten better in later days. Like once I was introduced to what's it called, the thinning medium that they have at GW, and then obviously other companies have thinning medium, but basically it's just like clear paint, and you just mix in your color, you dilute it. Yeah, and so it's gotten better for sure, but it's definitely been one. Now moving into more of a hobby-centric thing, not planning my purchases. This is kind of a strange one to explain to someone, but when you see an army and you're excited about it, it's easy to go like, okay, start collecting boxes are the perfect way to start a faction. 100% agree. And if you're playing Flesh Eater Courts, only ever buy those. Basically is my advice for you. But for a lot of other factions, you think specifically things like Daughters of Cain or Seize of Sigmar, based on their start collecting boxes, that kind of thing. You can realize really quickly that like I can get kind of lost on buying things to the point where at the end of a bunch of purchases and painting all these things, I don't actually have a legal list. And this is an issue I came up against when I was doing my Skaven army. If you don't know, I did do Skaven for a bit. I think it was like about a year and a half ago at this point. And I started saying, okay, I want to do, I think it was General Skaven. So I painted up like 40 clan rats. And then I was like, but wait, I kind of also want to be able to take a bunch of plague monks. And so then I started painting a bunch of plague monks. The problem is with the way that Battleline works within Skaven as a faction, I had now well over 100 painted models, but no legal tournament list. Like I literally, and I don't go to a lot of tournaments. I just mean even just me and my friends, Jack, Real and One guys, we all play with match play legal armies in narrative scenarios and we have fun. I couldn't even do that. And so I just felt so dumb and discouraged by all the work that I had poured in. And I felt like I could not engage with that work in a way that was meaningful, meaning I couldn't play the army. And so, I would say that's definitely something that's been on my mind ever since. You have to plan stuff out. Like I did my ideal, 2K list here for my crazy Maggotkin dudes. But, I already have half that list painted, and the other half I can go gradually. I can add things here and there. I can, you know what I mean? So I've kind of planned this out far more than most of my other projects. And so I think that's really important. If you're playing an army, especially if you're playing something like Daughters of Cain, where all of your heroes come in one box, that whatever the throne is, all your hero options are basically in there. You need to really decide what you want your list and your army to be like, or just buy like 6 of them because you're a collector now and this is your life. Sean says, I remember your Skaven. Yeah, they were cool. Shu over Early Ones has, I think, the vast majority of them. Now the next one, again, it's a little bit, it's removed from painting specifically, but it's very important to the hobby, and that is understanding your painting motivation. For the longest time, I would, some days I just feel like painting and some days I just don't. And I wasn't really thinking about how motivation works for me specifically. Sorry, I'm watching the comments, making sure everything's cool and kosher. But really what it is, and I'm going to put it very simply, for me specifically, I am motivated to paint when I play games and engage with the parts of the hobby that I love, which is laughing a lot, making weird, stupid scenarios, and having general fun with my friends. I can go play one game of Age of Sigmar or 40k or Kill Team, whatever, and walk away with enough enthusiasm to paint 60 dudes. So, it's one of those things that it really recharges my battery, even though I'm not a social person. I would generally rather stay home, but when I get to engage with these hobbies on the table, it just reinvigorates my love for the hobby. And that's something it took me a long time to understand. And if you'll notice, if you have been around on this channel since I don't know, I hit 3,000 subs way back in the day, my switching and selling of armies has actually slowed down. And that's because I've slowly realized, if I just I feel like I want to play something else, you know what I mean, like play a different faction, if I just take my Maggotkin out and go have fun with them, I will be so enthused about my Maggotkin, you know, and that's just how I am. And so that's me, but I do encourage you to really think about, okay, when was the last time I was really excited to hobby or to game or to list build or whatever, you know, the thing you're trying to motivate yourself to do, and try to think about the circumstances that made you really excited about that. And I know it's kind of a weird time in history in terms of, like, you know, being able to interact with other people and go to game stores and that kind of thing, but try your best to kind of recapture that. Figure out what your painting motivation is, or just your gaming motivation in general, and really lean into it. And the last one here I put as sort of self-deprecating, but it's true. And my hobby mistake I used to do was thinking that YouTubers knew it all. So I've made this joke many, many times, and I am not immune to it. The amount of people online who are like, this is how you win a tournament, this list is garbage, this unit's terrible, and then those people have never won a thing, is astounding. Okay, so you got to get some perspective. They're just people, they can be wrong, and they have opinions. Same goes for me, that like there was this point where people started approaching me as if I was some kind of celebrity and that kind of stuff. I'm just a dude. You know what I mean? Vince Ventrella is an awesome human. He's not the definitive god of painting. You know what I mean? If you ever... let me give you a little pro tip here, everybody. This is going to be something actionable you can walk away with. Anytime you think to yourself, wow, that YouTuber's so cool, he would never hang out with me. Imagine them with, like, I don't know, severe diarrhea or something embarrassing that, like, they would never want you to see them in that lowly state. And you will find they are quite human because it's the most human thing. We've all been there. We've all had that Dumb and Dumber moment when he drinks like 3 gallons of X-Lax. I want you to do that. Think of Vince Ventrella like that. That's my challenge for you this week. And I say that because he's a YouTuber that I collaborated with that I really like him as a person. So that's why I'm picking on him. But yeah, so it's in terms of, like, you know, when you see YouTubers come out with, you know, tutorials, hey, here's how you do this. Understand there are multiple ways to achieve different things. And whether that thing, in quotes there, is the best way to build a list, whether it's the best way to paint, approach the hobby, create a narrative game, talk about matched play. Like, there's this, again, Jack's cool as hell. It doesn't apply to him. Absolutely. Yes, 100%. He doesn't even go to the bathroom. So, yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that just kind of keep in mind that this hobby, these people talking, myself included, we're not instructors. We're not guiding you along anything. We just help what we can. Vince does incredible painting tutorials and discussions of color and that kind of stuff in terms of how to use it, stretch it, do blending and things like that. For me, I talk about lore, but people often say, like, oh, well, Doug said that these two don't go together, so they can't. Absolutely not the case. We just talk about things we like and we think, and that's about it. So don't think YouTubers are gods. Okay, so, and again, I cannot stress enough, I am actively talking about myself on that one, so I don't want to see like a Twitter argument against another YouTuber person and Doug's like, well, Doug said that you're not that great. So that's all my ones that I used to do. Okay, now I assume every YouTuber is a scam artist. I'm a husk of a man. I understand my painting motivation. I only deign to do it when I want to. You know, all those other things taken to extremes and out of context that I said before. I'm going to talk now about the mistakes that I understand are faulty, but I still do them. Okay, and this is the one where we get to make fun of Doug. Let me take a sip of coffee here. All right, so as far as stuff I still do, feeling pressured to learn new things or use specific tools. Now, this is an interesting one because it kind of ties in sort of with the thing that I mentioned earlier, right? You'll see a lot of exposure online to, like, this is the blending technique I use, these are the paints I use, the brushes, all that kind of stuff. And I do, and I'm not sure if this happens to you too, I feel that sort of built-in pressure, my mom used to call it first world pressure, to, like, buy and try new things. Or that is to say, like, You should really try, I don't know, these specific line of brushes, because these are like professional brushes, and we kind of put those terms on these things. But the truth is, I'm going to quote my hero, Bob Ross, you can paint with almost anything. All you have to do is practice. And that's exactly true. Like, don't feel pressured. If you find a blending technique that works for you, absolutely keep on doing it. Make a video showing people a new way to do things. For me, specifically, it comes down a lot to products. I get requests a lot of people like, hey Doug, I see you do a lot of hobby and painting on your channel. Obviously not the last month, but you know what I mean. Would you mind like talking about XYZ? And I was like, for some stuff like the Squidmar brushes, like they're just really good brushes, and I don't usually have detail brushes, so I was thankful and I made a video about them. But for the vast majority of stuff, I'm like, this is no different than the thing that I get at Hobby Lobby, so I don't really want to talk about it. I don't care. And that's pretty much my life. Ben Connor in the chat says Walmart brushes are the way to go. Absolutely. I buy the 12-pack of brushes from Hobby Lobby with my 40% off coupon. I think I spent about $5. And then I do have some brushes that are like specifically meant to be detailed, like just to get eyes. But that's about it, and at that point, I'm not super worried about it. So my point is, don't feel pressured to, do different techniques. You're not a loser at painting if you don't do non-metallic metals. I don't do them. I don't see the appeal. Don't worry about it. If it seems interesting, learn it. If it doesn't, don't care. You have that option. It's the best part of the internet. Just stop caring. That would be my suggestion. So, moving on here. Next thing mistake I still make is comparing my work to others. Now, when I say my work, I don't necessarily, for me personally, mean so much of painting, although I think that's definitely the number one, thing that kind of comes up when we think about comparing ourselves in this hobby. For me, it has much more to do with like video production, that kind of stuff. And so I'll look at other channels like Luton and what are some other big channels? I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like there's a whole bunch of stuff where we can compare our work to others, and sometimes comparison is great because you can look at what other people are doing and be like, that's rad. I want to incorporate that into my skill set. But I find for me personally, a lot of my comparisons are coming from a point of deficiency, meaning I'm not good at this because they're so much better. And that's just not great. It's not great when it comes to list building or painting or content production or anything like that. It's just not helpful to start yourself in a lowly state instead of like, I am awesome. What am I going to be awesome at next? Right? That's the mindset that is the ultimate goal of just, I can win this tournament. What do I need to do to make that happen? And I think that's a very different starting point than saying, Tom Lyons is a fantastic tournament player. I could never play at his level, right? Where you're starting yourself at a different level, degree to somebody else because you're comparing, he's very knowledgeable about the game and the way mechanics interact. I'm picking on everybody today. I'm sorry. These are just the names that are coming to my mind because I just watched Warhammer Weekly. Go check it out. But you know what I mean? So like there are just these people who are very tuned into what's going on with the game. And you think to yourself, well, I'll never be quite as good as them. That's the wrong attitude. You can beat them. You can beat Tom Lyons at a game of Age of Sigmar, but you just have to understand the game a little better and work towards it. So that would be my thought there, comparing yourself to others. One thing that I suck at, and still do, and I know it's a problem, is brush cleaning. You know that scene in Predator when, oh my gosh, what was his name? What was the name of the wrestler who became like a governor or something like that? I think it starts with a V. Anyway, he has the machine gun, and he just like hoses the forest down, like drops like 10,000 bullets. That's me with paintbrushes. Ventura, is that his name? I don't know. But yeah, so that is me just hammering through brushes because I'm so hard on them. I let them sit in the water, and every single time I do a hobby hang, people comment on it. I don't use a wet palette. Oh, I just destroy them, but I don't even care. And the last thing here that Jesse Ventura, I was right. Thank you so much, everybody. The last thing I do that I still need to work on is bad posture, which doesn't sound like a hobby thing until, your hobby involves sitting and producing content at a computer, turning to your left slightly, and then painting for several hours, and then going to work and doing the same thing. Point is, posture is everything. That's kind of one of the reasons I threw my back out here recently, and so I'm working on that. So go ahead, take good care of yourselves. It's weird to... We all Predator fans up in here. Yes, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember Jesse. I remember like the V, and I was like, I know his name. I know this man. But yeah, and so those would be the ones that I was still doing. So Bly, those are hobby mistakes that I used to do and things that I still do actively. I still compare myself all the time to other YouTubers and artists and players. I still compare my work to others. I'm bad at when it comes to owning paintbrushes, transporting models, all kinds of stuff. I'm human. There are things of the hobby that I'm bad at and just things that I don't care about being bad at. And the idea here is just to say it's okay to do that. It's okay to have things that you're not good at. If you want to improve them, improve them. If not, don't worry about it, and you'll be all set. And so that is my main topic for the day, is talking about hobby mistakes. What I'm going to do now is open it up to questions, if anyone has any, and I always like to do a little Q&A section. Go ahead, if you wouldn't mind, either typing Doug or tag me 2plusstuff, type question in all caps, something to kind of get my attention, just because the chat's kind of going wild. It's a Jesse Ventura kind of day. So if there was a question you asked earlier and I skipped over it, please go ahead and ask it again, and we'll get right to it. So BioFet78, what kind of case do you use? Well, the Maggotkin, specifically my Pusquails, stand about 9 inches tall with their flies and that kind of stuff. So what I did is I went to Lowe's and I got a big black like electrical wiring moving tub and screwed a bunch of Tupperware into it. And so I'll take pictures. I can throw it up on Insta. But yeah, so it's a great thing to be able to move those. The problem is like no foam cases will work well with those Pusquails. Like, yeah, I don't know. So they're a very, very tricky. There is just some units where you swear GW forgets that these are like actual game pieces. I felt the same way with the the Griff Charger units, like the guys holding the javelins. You're like, you guys didn't even think that we were going to take these out of our house, did you? You crazy. These are terrible to move. And that's kind of the thing. So yeah, I had to kind of jerry-rig together a thing from Lowe's to make my set work. Cody Griffin says, neck beards, bad posture, body odor, unkempt hair, and need to prove your worths. That's funny. That guy. Yep. Spezia, thank you so much for that donation. It's very kind of you. I always strive to be open and honest, and in nothing else, sincere, right? That's I think sincerity I want to be the defining feature of the channel, more than being correct or anything like that. To say something positive about you, Doug, you paint the models you have 90% of the time. That is true. I do. Doug does good when it comes to painting crap that I own. Question, what did you think about the Path to Glory Coalition of Death rules set I came up with? Yeah, so if you don't know, my buddy Brian here is an awesome patron and person and friend, and so he came up with a compilation. I'm going to call it a compilation. I don't really know what else to call it, but basically taking Coalition of Death and Path to Glory together in a way that is really, really cool. And I don't know how much you want to share, but I did really enjoy it. Basically, it's the idea of Path to Glory, but you're doing so in a way where it's not just like player versus player. It's all about working as a team and that kind of stuff. It's like a group campaign thing is how I'd probably describe it. And what I love, quite frankly, first line is bullet point 1, a narrative purpose. That's why you win, my friend. So I do like it quite a bit. I don't know how much you want me to pimp it, just because you did send it to me as a personal document, but that's up to you, my friend. So yeah, it's really cool. Let me dive into it a bit more because there were some details towards the aftermath and the eternal glory thing that I hadn't quite read yet, but it is very, very cool. So let's see. Hobby mistakes. Taking that first hit of plastic crack. Exactly. Let's see. This might be a good idea for a video. Storage is constantly my biggest issue with the hobby. Okay, that's interesting. I will absolutely do that. Question. Have you thought of maybe some Chosen or Warriors for some punch in your Nurgle list? You could do some cool stuff with conversions and painting themes. Absolutely. The reason I went with Beasts of Chaos is because I could get all of the beasts in a single battalion because I want to keep the drops as low as humanly possible. To ensure that I get first turn and my Blight Lords can pin down the opponent. And so anything that's not in a battalion becomes kind of a burden. It starts working against that. And so I have thought about it, yes. And I've also thought about the Nurgle battalion from Slaves to Darkness, but unfortunately that one is just too expensive. You can fit it, just not well. Like, none of the units are really great at doing anything. At least Ungor, they get the speed bonus. They can go hop on an objective. I am going to be getting some Bulgor and 20 Bestigor, so I'm not dead set on the 3 blocks of Ungor. I'm going to start mixing some stuff out. I am going to have some Bulgor, just to have rend and some real damage there. I don't expect much from them, but hey, they're there. So that's not the final permutation of the list, but it's a general direction of like, this is how we can play the objectives game. Pin the enemy down, everything else swarms an objective. Summoning's all about reinforcing the objective holders. So yeah, for sure. Question from Cody. How much is too much? Ask whatever you want. Go ahead, buddy. Rapid fire me. Cody asks, where can I find those rules? I'm going to point you to Brian because I don't... You sent it to me in an email, so I have to figure out how to post this somewhere. I don't have a link for you. That's why I was like, I don't want to talk about it, just not because it's not a cool thing. It's a very cool thing, but it's one of those things where it's hard to show. Man, I could talk for hours about Path to Glory. Yeah, I love Path to Glory so much. It's fantastic format, and it's something I would love GW to really invest in. Let's see. Okay. Awesome. Brian's working on an upload folder. Brian, if you get that done by next Friday, I will have it and we can chat about it in some more detail. So don't worry about that, buddy. We can have that be our closer next week. Okay, so I'm going to do one last call for questions, and then I'm going to give my final spiel while you guys are typing in your questions here. But I just wanted to say that it has been a very intense couple of weeks for our nation and our world in the U.S. and then obviously everything like that. But I just wanted to say, hang in there. You know, I got a special video I'm working on here pretty soon where it's going to be a lot of just me talking because I'm very late to it, but for my achievement of hitting 30,000 subs, people have been asking me for years, literally, to have a video of me just talking normally about normal stuff so that they can fall asleep to it for ASMR. And I'm going to be doing that for folks. So that's coming up. But the point is, just enjoy the things that you have in your life for now and the people who are with you, and be kind to one another. That's my final thought. If I could sum it up, I'm going to say live. Live like you've never lived before, because these trying times are all over us. Laugh, ha ha ha, because you have to. It keeps us all sane. And love, because everyone needs it and everybody wants it. So live, laugh, love, everybody. I said it. I started saying that ironically when I was younger, and now I just say it. I say triple L all the time, and I hate it. I hate myself. I'm so sorry. That is a joke there. Okay, that was my rambling just for questions to come in. Thank you for your Flesh Eater Court breakdown. It helped me decide, guys. Big question: Geist or Zombie Dragon? I've heard The Terrorgeist is the nastier one. I would say start there. If you have multiple kits, go ahead and start with the Terrorgeist and then go into the Zombie Dragon. That would be my suggestion off the top of my head. Let's see. What do you think is in the Stormcast Ruination Chamber? I'm going to say War Machines. I don't know what those would look like, but probably something with like lightning or whatever. Let's see. Doug, would you recommend Path to Glory or Skirmish as an introduction to playing Age of Sigmar? Path to Glory. Path to Glory because it sets you on a course where you're adding whole units to your faction and you're creating narrative for specific champions. Skirmish is the only thing that Skirmish really offers you is you learn the mechanics of like to hit and to wound and moving and things like that, because it's just Age of Sigmar but scaled down. Whereas Path to Glory is kind of a good in between of like you can see how units move and interact with one another. You still get that same basic hit wound thing, but quite frankly, it's a lot more interesting because of the kind of units you can have in there. So that's definitely what I would say. I think Path to Glory trumps Skirmish any day of the week. Unsubscribing now. Let's see. Flesh Eater Courts Geists. If you're playing Legions of Nagash, go with the Dragon. That's a good idea. So, do you think games like Warcry could be further simplified by the use of pre-sized templates for ranges? Marvel Crisis Protocol and Song of Blades and Heroes both seem to benefit from it. Well, I don't think a major complaint of Warcry is that it's not simple enough. That's kind of the opposite of most complaints. Although I wouldn't be opposed to it, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a cool system. I think there's a lot of directions they could go if they really wanted to lean into it. But I think for obvious reasons with what's going on in the world today, like they've just kind of been quiet on it. Like, we need to prioritize, focus on 40k and AOS, that kind of stuff. So a lot of those side games just aren't getting the support and love that they need. I think Warcry is one of them. Where there are some, one of the things when Warcry first launched that I said was it's a fantastic starting point, right? For all the people who complained that it wasn't complicated enough and there wasn't enough grindiness to it in terms of rules and upgrades and that kind of stuff. It has a lot of room for those things to be bolted on, but we just need more supplements and support for that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm down for it. I've never played Marvel Crisis Protocol, but I'm very excited to learn about it because it seems really, really neat. Actually, it seems like a game that's right up my alley. I don't think I would really necessarily do any content on it for fear of Mickey himself descending upon my channel to complain about the way I represent Captain America or something stupid like that. But I would certainly be interested in playing it for sure. Hey Doug, do you have a custom hero made from the Apotheosis rules? I don't. That's a great question. It's actually something I was going to go over. I just this last week wrote my lore officially for the Ferryman of Nurgle. If you don't know, he's the leader of my Nurgle army. And I just haven't... I took my GHB into work so I could read it on my lunch break, and then I forgot it there, which I don't know. Of course I did. That's just the thing I do with everything I bring into work. So anyway, I need to get my book before I can do that. But I was in the process of, okay, I wrote this lore, and now I'm going to go through and I pick things in the Anvil of Apotheosis based upon that lore that really push that feeling. And so that's kind of my thought, and that's what I'm going to go for right now. So. Question for all by Jacob. Next project, Old School Dwarden or Skaven Boys? I'm honestly, for me personally, I go Dwarden. That's just me. I love some of their models, and some of the Skaven models are older than dirt. Regina Reforged, I'm still down to draw the art, whatever hero you come up with. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I reached out to you on Twitter. Please forgive me. I don't know your actual Twitter handle. Please go ahead, Regina, throw it in the chat. She does incredible work. There's some really cool things. There's a Stormcast picture, which I see is actually your icon. Go check it out. So, very cool stuff. Spezia, question, is there an FAQ on Phalanx Elves all facing the same way? Envisioning porcupine balls everywhere. As far as I know, no, but I haven't really been looking. I'll be honest. Actually, that's something I can do real quick. I'm just going to look to see if they added that FAQ, but usually they would have said something, right? Online FAQs. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. So, yeah, not there. Anyway, everyone go check out at Laylo the Tyrant. There we go. I knew Tyrant was in the name, but I couldn't think of the actual, the whole thing. Awesome artwork. Go check it out. Question, do you use proxies in your game? Typically, no, but I encourage people to. You know, I typically I buy the models that I like and I just play with them. You know what I mean? Whether they're good or bad. But if somebody wanted to proxy something, like if Jack was like, hey, I want to try this new list. Do you mind if I, you know, do X, Y, and Z as this other unit? I don't care. It's fine. You know, do you. Have fun. Okay. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you all so much for joining me for another Friday while you're reforging. I hope to check you all out next week. We will definitely, me and my buddy, my boy, Brian, are going to get this all set up to where you can check out his Path of Glory and Coalition of Death mix. I want to become more knowledgeable about it. And so we'll chat about that next week, as well as our next patron topic, which is going to be... I really like the Biofoot 78 one that I accidentally read in the beginning, which is advice on unspoken rules and procedures in place to play AOS. So those little social contracts that we don't realize we're making when we play a game, I want to talk about them. We're gonna mention the unmentionables, if you will. So anyway, thank you all so much for hanging out today. I look forward to seeing you all. Go hang out and check out the Animosity campaign. I haven't contributed as much as I want because of work, but I'm in and out trying to chat with people as much as possible. And I look forward to seeing you over there. Thank you so much. Happy wargaming. See you next week.